All right, we are coming up on 8 o'clock. So, let's settle in. Let's get comfortable. Let's grab a drink and pull up a chair. Because we are getting back to the classics tonight. Welcome back. And welcome to our first night of reading Dante Alighieri. From the Divine Comedy, we are starting off with the Inferno. I was really surprised we hadn't gotten to this one yet. And you know what? I really should be getting in the habit of doing start of stream intros aside from the welcome that we have before. So, if you haven't been around before, or if you're just wandering in, hello! I am Arthur Irving-Rush. We read. That's really all we do around here. And we read all sorts of stuff. Classics, a little bit more modern pieces on Saturdays. And we go about as far as it goes. We just recently read the Epic of Gilgamesh. We've read some Hemingway. We've read Mark Twain. And that's just in the last few weeks. So, thanks once again for joining us. I hope you enjoy your stay. Alright, that's the intro out of the way. I can pretend that I'm a stand-up adult streamer here. Yes. Where was I? Yeah, so, I'm surprised we haven't read this before. We've gotten through a lot of similar works. We read Paradise Lost way back when, and, yeah, I think that's probably a lot of it. It's something of a low-hanging fruit. It's a really well-known book, poem, thing, and we've really gone out of our way to pick things from a little bit further back on the shelf. That's not to say that this is really needed to be avoided. No, it's just that we've been having fun exploring, and we kind of got lost in the sauce. So, we're looping back. And I think it's there's not really a season for this. It's just, it is what it is. When times are bad, you want to picture your political opponents going through the various circles of hell, just like Dante. And you know what? I can deal with that. I can totally vibe with that. Dante, you got some ideas there, and I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, and so I do have another side thing to comment on. With the adoption of the new stream overlay and stream bot going on, you may notice that the Mixed-Up bot is working for chat. It looks a little bit better than it did last time. I think I might need to tweak the positioning a little bit, because it is... the new messages are kind of in my head. But anyway, I am exploring some different things that we can do with the channel. Of note, you may notice that we now have 2 new channel point redeems. Both of them are on cooldowns. One of them does something. You can toggle my jacket, so get a little more or less comfy, as the case may be. That one's got about a 10-minute cooldown. And I have added a play bartender for me button. So, if you have decided that you've got too many points to burn, as I'm sure a few of you probably do, so there hasn't been any reason to use them yet, feel free. Call my next drink. Alright, that's about all for now. That's the preamble. Yeah, you may have a few. I was looking at my monitor stream, and it's got about almost 30k points, and it just sits idle through each of the streams to make sure that I've got good connection. So I imagine you've got something more than that. Alright, so let's go ahead and shift gears and get ready to start our reading. I really don't know how long this is going to take us. It's been a good number of years since I read Dante, and this is the version that is pretty much globally, well, not globally, but it's universally chosen as the most approachable and narrative-friendly version that I could find. And actually, because of where I found it, it's kind of it's going to be an interesting read. It's going to play off like picking up a secondhand book from a shelf and finding all sorts of study notes and the like, because wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what it is. Pulled it from the Internet Archive, a PDF, and it is just a scan of someone's well-loved copy. And I kind of love that. I kind of like it. So, let's dive in together to Dante's The Inferno, the first part of the Divine Comedy. Now, this is one that many of us probably have read in school, and as such, well, really, we're not in the business of literary analysis around here. No, we just read for the love of the game. So, we won't be dissecting things too much. There are notes at the end of each canto for this, but we'll mostly brush them over. There might be some comments that we make, but that sounds like work. So, let's begin. The Inferno by Dante Alighieri. There's a fair bit of preamble here, so I did have a bookmark set already. Yeah, 27 pages deep. We'll do that. And very, very quickly, we find exactly what I was talking about with the well-loved personal copy notes. Oh yes, highlights and underlines and notes in the margins. I actually love this. This makes the book feel alive. I'm here for it. All right. The Inferno. Canto 1. The Dark Wood of Error. Midway in his allotted 70 years and 10, Dante comes to himself with a start, and realizes that he has strayed from the true way into the dark wood of error. As soon as he has realized his loss, Dante lifts his eyes and sees the first light of the sunrise, lighting the shoulders of a little hill. It is the Easter season, the time of resurrection, and the sun is in its equinoctial rebirth. This juxtaposition of joyous symbols fills Dante with hope. Okay, is this actually... Oh, damn it, it's the pre-thing. Yeah, okay. This is better. Midway in our life's journey, I went astray from the straight road and woke to find myself alone in a dark wood. How shall I say what wood that was? I never saw so drear, so rank, so arduous a wilderness. Its very memory gives a shape to fear. Death could scarce be more bitter than that place. Yeah, imagery. But since it came to good, I will recount all that I found revealed there by God's grace. How I came to it, I cannot rightly say. So drugged and loose with sleep had I become when I first wandered there from the true way. But at the end of that valley of evil, whose maze had sapped my very heart with fear, I found myself before a little hill, and lifted up my eyes. Its shoulders glowed already with the sweet rays of that planet whose virtue leads men straight on every road. And the shining strengthened me against the fright whose agony had racked the lake of my heart through all the terrors of that piteous night. Just as a swimmer, who, with his last breath, flounders ashore from perilous seas, might turn to memorize the wide water of his death. So did I turn, my soul still fugitive from death's surviving image, to stare down that past that none had ever left alive. And there I lay, to rest from my heart's race till calm and breath returned to me, then rose and pushed up that dead slope at such a pace, each footfall above the last, and lo! Almost at the beginning of the rise I faced a spotted leopard, all tremor and flow and gaudy pelt, and it would not pass, but stood so blocking my every turn that time and again I was on the verge of turning back to the wood. This fell at the first widening of the dawn, as the sun was climbing Aries with those stars that rode with him to light the new creation. Thus, the holy hour and the sweet season of commemoration did much to arm my fear of that bright, murderous beast with their good omen. Yet not so much, but what I shook with dread at sight of a great lion that broke upon me, raging with hunger, its enormous head held high as if to strike a mortal terror into the very air. And down his track a she-wolf drove upon me, a starved horror, ravening and wasting beyond all belief. She seemed a rack for avarice, gaunt and craving. Oh, many the souls she has brought to endless grief. She brought such heaviness upon my spirit. At sight of her savagery and desperation, I died from every hope of that high summit, and like a miser, eager in acquisition, but desperate in self-reproach when fortune's wheel turns to the hour of his loss, all tears and attrition, I wavered back, and still the beast pursued, forcing herself against me bit by bit, till I slid back into the sunless wood. And as I fell to my soul's ruin, a presence gathered before me on the discolored air, the figure of one who seemed hoarse from long silence. At sight of him in that friendless waste, I cried, "Have pity on me, whatever thing you are, whether shade or living man." And it replied, "Not man, though man I once was, and my blood was Lombard, both my parents Mantuan. I was born, though late, sub Julio, and bred in Rome, under Augustus, in the noon of the false and lying gods. I was a poet, and sang of old Anchises' noble son, who came to Rome after the burning of Troy. But you, why do you return to these distresses instead of climbing that shining mount of joy, which is the seat and first cause of man's bliss? And are you then that Virgil, and that fountain of purest speech?" My voice grew tremulous. "Glory and light of poets, now may that zeal and love's apprenticeship that I poured out on your heroic verses serve me well, for you are my true master and first author, the sole maker from whom I drew the breath of that sweet style whose measures have brought me honor. See there, immortal sage, the beast I flee. For my soul's salvation, I beg you, guard me from her, for she has struck a mortal tremor through me." I'm sorry, hold on. You're being chased through the wilderness by a monstrous she-wolf, and you come up to a poet and say, "Save me, poet! Save me with your words from the vicious wolf." And I know you're desperate, and I know this is poetry, but have a thought. Just take a moment. Let that sink. And he replied, seeing my soul in tears, "He must go by another way who would escape this wilderness, or that mad beast that flees. Before you there suffers no man to pass. She tracks down all, kills all, and knows no glut. Feeding, she grows hungrier than she was. She mates with any beast and will mate with more before the greyhound comes to hunt her down. He will not feed on lands nor loot, but honor, and love and wisdom will make straight his way. He will rise between Feltro and Feltro, and in him shall be the resurrection and new day. Yeah, the whole thing is... So there's two very key things about the Inferno. Well, and really about the whole Divine Comedy. The fan fiction part, where he's hobnobbing with his favorite historical figures and literary figures, and being able to interact with them as if a contemporary, kind of fluffing himself up, putting himself on a pedestal with them. And also using it as a political soapbox to look at current people who are in disfavor, shall we say, and depicting them in various states of dis-ease, shall we say. So Dante's got... He's just letting it all out. Where were we? And love and wisdom will make straight his way. He will rise between Feltro and Feltro, and in him shall be the resurrection and new day of that sad Italy for which Nisus died, and Turnus and Euryalus and the maid Camilla. He shall hunt her through every nation of sick pride, till she is driven back forever to hell, whence envy first released her on the world. Therefore, for your own good, I think it well, you follow me, and I will be your guide, and lead you forth through an eternal place. There you shall see the ancient spirits tried in endless pain, and hear their lamentation, as each bemoans the second death of souls. Next, you shall see, upon a burning mountain, souls in fire, and yet content in fire, knowing that whensoever it may be that they yet will mount into the blessed choir, to which, if it is still your wish to climb, a worthier spirit shall be sent to guide you. With her shall I leave you, for the King of Time, who reigns on high, forbids me to come there, since, living, I've rebelled against his law. He rules the waters and land and air, and there holds court, his city and his throne. Oh, blessed are they he chooses. And I to him, Poet, by that God to you unknown, lead me this way, beyond this present ill, and worse to dread. Lead me to Peter's gate, and be my guide through the sad halls of hell. And he then, follow. And he moved ahead, in silence, and I followed where he led. All right, that gets us through the first canto, and you may note that the notes we saw already faded off. So whoever previously owned this copy may have not been a particularly careful study, or at least they did the first part of the readings dutifully, and then after that fell off. We'll find out as we continue on. Oh, there's more. Okay. But it is just in the beginning part there, so we'll see. So there's the narrative part, but we're here for the verse. We're here for the verse. Dr. Dante, indeed. Welcome in. You caught us at a good time. We're just getting started with the Inferno. We're only on the second canto. And speaking of, Canto the Second, The Descent. The light was departing. The brown air drew down all the earth's creatures, calling them to rest from their day roving, as I, one man alone, prepared myself to face the double war of the journey and the pity, which memory shall here set down, nor hesitate, nor err. O muses, O high genius, be my aid, O memory, recorder of the vision, here shall your true nobility be displayed. Please stop. Comcast? Don't do me dirty, we're just getting started tonight. Thus I began. Poet, you who must guide me before you trust me to that arduous passage. Look to me and look through me. Can I be worthy? You sang how the father of Silvius, while still in corruptible flesh, won to that other world, crossing with mortal sense the immortal sill. But if the adversary of all evil... Oh, come on. OBS, Comcast, both of you. Give me a break. Stop dropping frames. Now is not the time. Alright. But if the adversary of all evil, weighing his consequence and who and what should issue from him, treated him so well, that cannot seem unfitting to thinking men, since he was chosen father of Mother Rome, and of her empire by God's will and token, both, to speak strictly, were founded and foreknown as the established seat of holiness, for the successors of great Peter's throne. In that quest which your verses celebrate, he learned those mysteries, from which arose his victory in Rome's apostolate. There, later came the chosen vessel, Paul, bearing the confirmation of that faith, which is the one true door to life eternal. But I, who should I dare? By whose permission? I am not Aeneas. I am not Paul. Who could believe me worthy of the vision? How then may I presume to this high quest and not fear my own brashness? You are wise and will grasp that what my poor words can but suggest. As one who unwills what he will stay strong, purposes with feeble second thoughts, until he spells all his first zeal away. So I hung back, and balked on that dim coast, till thinking had worn out my enterprise, so stout at starting and so early lost. I understand from your words and the look in your eyes, that shadow of magnificence answered me. Your soul is sunken in that cowardice that bears down many men, turning their course and resolution by imagined perils, as his own shadow turns the frightened horse. To free you of this dread, I will tell you all of why I came to you, and what I heard when I first pitied you. I was a soul among the souls of Limbo, when a lady so blessed and so beautiful, I prayed her to order and command my will, called to me. Her eyes were kindled from the lamps of heaven. Her voice reached through me, tender, sweet, and low, an angel's voice, a music of its own. O gracious Mantuan, whose melodies live in earth's memory, and shall live on, till the last motion ceases in the skies, my dearest friend and fortune's foe has strayed unto a friendless shore, and stands beset by such distresses that he turns afraid from the true way, and news of him in heaven rumors my dread he is already lost. I come, afraid that I am too late risen. Fly to him, and with your high counsel pity, and with whatever need be for his good and soul salvation help him, and solace me. It is I, Beatrice, who send you to him. I come from the blessed height for which I yearn. Love called me here. When, amid seraphim, I stand again before my Lord, your praises shall sound in heaven. She paused, and I began. O lady, of that only grace that raises feeble mankind within its mortal cycle, above all other works God's will has placed within the heaven of the smallest circle. So, welcome is your command that to my sense, were it already fulfilled, it would yet seem tardy. I understand, and am all obedience. But tell me, how you dare to venture thus so far from the wide heaven of our joy. Heaven of your joy, to which your thoughts yearn back from this abyss. Since what you ask, she answered me, probes near the root of all, I will say briefly only how I have come through hell's pit, without fear. Know then, O waiting and compassionate soul, that is to fear which has the power to harm, and nothing else is fearful, even in hell. I am so made by God's all-seeing mercy, your anguish does not touch me, and the flame of this great burning has no power upon me. There is a lady in heaven so concerned for him I send you to, that for her sake the strict decree is broken. She has turned and called Lucia to her wish and mercy, saying, Thy fearful one is sorely pressed. In his distresses I commend him to thee. Lucia, that soul of light and foe of all cruelty, rose and came to me at once, where I was sitting with the ancient Rachel, saying to me, Beatrice, good, true praise of God, why dost thou not help him who loved thee so, that for thy sake he left the vulgar crowd? Dost thou not hear his cries? Canst thou not see the death he wrestles with beside that river no ocean can surpass for rage and fury? No soul of earth was ever so rapt to seek its good or flee its injury as I was, when I heard my sweet Lucia speak, to descend from heaven and my blessed seat to you, laying my trust in that high speech that honors you and all who honor it. She spoke, and turned away to hide a tear that, shining, urged me faster. So I came, and freed you from the beast that drove you there, blocking the near way to the heavenly height. And now, what ails you? Why do you lag? Why this heart-sick hesitation and pale fright, whence three such blessed ladies lean from heaven in their concern for you, and my own pledge of the great good that waits you has been given? As flowerlets drooped and puckered in the night, turn up to the returning sun and spread their petals wide on this new warmth and light, just so my wilted spirits rose again, and such a heat of zeal surged through my veins that I was born anew. Thus I began. Blessed be that lady of infinite pity, and blessed be thy taxed and courteous spirit that came so promptly on the word she gave thee. Thy words have moved my heart to its first purpose, my guide, my lord, my master. Now lead on. One will shall serve the two of us in this. He turned when I had spoken, and at his back I entered on that hard and perilous track. So initially it was called Comedy. It was called Divine Comedies, already 60 years after his death. It was already... Oh, okay, wow! That... I may have known that, or may have heard that, but it is interesting to see how even so quickly after the work has been written and put to pen, it sort of takes a life of its own and evolves past the author. Dante just called it comedy, it seems. But the world is like, no. We can do better than that. It helps to have a distinguishing point to latch onto. This has got, between the names of the individual parts of the three poems, the cantos and the overarching comedy itself, it's very hard to pick a title to use for the stream or for anything. So, all very cool. literature has a life of its own beyond its author. The community and the readers themselves sort of add to the life of it. I love it. All right, that brings us to the third canto tonight. Let's see. Now even with the early parts, the introduction, we're only about 13 way through. Yeah, I as long as I get a title at all, and it's enough to disambiguate between what we're doing, I'll work with whatever we get. All right. The third canto, Vestibule of Hell. The Opportunists. There it is. I am the way into the city of woe. I am the way to a forsaken people. I am the way into eternal sorrow. Sacred justice moved my architect. I was raised here by divine omnipotence, primordial love, and ultimate intellect. Only those elements time cannot wear were made before me, and beyond time I stand. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Oh yeah, we got the line. These mysteries I read cut into stone above a gate, and turning, I said, "Master, what is the meaning of this harsh inscription?" And he then, as initiate to novice, "Here must you put by all division of spirit, and gather your soul against all cowardice. This is the place I told you to expect. Here you shall pass among the fallen people, souls who have lost the good of intellect." So saying, he put forth his hand to me, and, with a gentle and encouraging smile, he led me through the gate of mystery. Here, sighs and cries and wails coiled and recoiled on the starless air, spilling my soul to tears. A confusion of tongues and monstrous accents toiled in pain and anger, voices hoarse and shrill in sounds of blows all intermingled, raised tumult and pandemonium that still whirls on the air, forever dirty with it, as if a whirlwind sucked its sand. And I, holding my head in horror, cried, "Sweet spirit, what souls are these who run through this black haze?" And he to me, "These are the nearly soulless, whose lives concluded neither blame nor praise. They are mixed here with that despicable corps of angels, who were neither for God nor Satan, but only for themselves. The High Creator scourged them from heaven for its perfect beauty, and hell will not receive them, since the wicked might feel some glory over them." And I, "Master, what gnaws at them so hideously? Their lamentation stuns the very air." Hi, Zoe. "They have no hope of death," he answered me, "and in their blind and unattaining state, their miserable lives have sunk so low that they must envy every other fate. No word of them survives their living season. Mercy and justice deny them even a name. Let us not speak of them. Look and pass on." I saw a banner there upon the mist, circling. It seemed to scorn all pause. So it ran on, and still behind it pressed, a never-ending rout of souls in pain. I had not thought death had undone so many as passed before me in that mournful train. And some I knew among them. Last of all, I recognized the shadow of that soul who, in his cowardice, made the great denial. At once I understood for certain. These were of that retrograde and faithless crew, hateful to God and to his enemies. These wretches, never born and never dead, ran naked in a swarm of wasps and hornets that goaded them the more they fled, and made their faces stream with bloody gouts of pus and tears that dribbled to their feet to be swallowed there by loathsome worms and maggots. Then I looked onward. I made out a throng assembled on the beach of a wide river, whereupon I turned to him. Master, I long to know what souls these are, and what strange usage makes them as eager to cross as they seem to be in this infected light. At which the sage, all this shall be made known to you when we stand on the joyless beach of Acheron. And I cast down my eyes, sensing reprimand in what he said, and so walked at his side in silence and ashamed, until we came through the dead cavern to that sunless tide. Yeah, that's right. Don't ask questions to the spirit of a dead poet. You just shut up, watch, and he'll talk to you when he's ready. There, steering toward us in an ancient ferry, came an old man with a white bush of hair, bellowing, "Woe to you, depraved souls! Bury here and forever all hope of paradise! I come to lead you to the other shore, into eternal dark, into fire and ice. And you who are living yet, I say, begone from those who are dead." But that when he saw me stand against his violence, he began again. "By other windings and by other steerage shall you cross to that other shore. Not here, not here! A lighter craft than mine must give you passage." And my guide to him, "Charon, bite back your spleen. This has been willed where what is willed must be, and is not yours to ask what it may mean." The steersman of that marsh of ruined souls, who wore a wheel of flame around each eye, stifled the rage that shook his woolly jowls. By those unmanned and naked spirits there turned pale with fear, and their teeth began to chatter. At sound of his cruel bellow, in despair they blasphemed God, their parents, their time on earth, the race of Adam, and the day, and the hour, and the place, and the seed, and the womb that gave them birth. But all together they drew to that grim shore, where all must come to who lose the fear of God. Weeping and cursing they come forevermore. And demon Charon, with eyes like burning coals, herds them in, and with a whistling oar flails on the stragglers to the wake of his souls. As leaves in autumn loosen and stream down until the branch stands bare above its tatters, spread on the rustling ground, so one by one the evil seed of Adam in its fall cast themselves at his signal from the shore and streamed away like birds who heed their call. So they are gone over that shadowy water. And always, before they reach the other shore, a new noise stirs on this, and new throngs gather. "My son," the courteous master said to me, "all who die in the shadow of God's wrath converge to this from every clime and country, and all pass over eagerly, for here divine justice transforms and spurs them so their dread turns wish. They yearn for what they fear. No soul in grace comes ever to this crossing. Therefore, if Charon rages at your presence, you will understand the reason for his cursing." When he had spoken, all the twilight country shook so violently, the terror of it bathes me with sweat even in memory. The tear-soaked ground gave out a sigh of wind that spewed itself in flame on a red sky, and all my shattered senses left me blind. Like one whom sleep comes over in a swoon, I stumbled into darkness and went down. All right, that brings us through the end of the third canto, and we've seen we're starting to see some of the references coming through, and hi Simba, yes, now both of you are hanging out. We're starting to see how Dante is pulling through references of other traditions, other religions, other figures, and also to identify things in Christian tradition and such. So he's kind of just grabbing bits and pieces from whatever sounds cool, as, you know, any good fanfic author will. So he's off to a good start, shall we say. Alright, we've got about 20 minutes till our first break, so let's keep on going. We can get through at least another canto. Maybe more. We'll see. So, Canto 4, Circle 1, Limbo, The Virtuous Pagans. A monstrous clap of thunder broke apart the swoon that stuffed my head. Like one awakened by violent hands, I leaped up with a start. Oh, we have the image, or some of the arts here. So we've got the, well, can I rotate this? I don't think I can. That would be way too easy. Hang on. Let's see if we can do something here with OBS. It would be nice, but no, I have no option for flip, rotate, or otherwise. Oh, you know what? I have it locked. That's probably it. Transform, rotate 90 degrees, clockwise. There we are. Haha, we can see it. All right, so we've got the inscription, the description and portrayal of the first 7 circles of hell here. The gate of hell, the vestibule of opportunists that we've seen, the Acheron and Charon, and we're coming up on the first circle that is about to be described. Alright, let's go ahead and undo that. Oop, get back here. And having risen, rested and renewed, I studied out the landmarks of the gloom to find my bearings there as best I could. And I found I stood on the very brink of the valley called the Dolorous Abyss, the desolate chasm where rolls the thunder of hell's eternal cry. So depthless, deep, and nebulous and dim that stare as I might into its frightful pit, it gave me back no feature and no bottom. Death pale, the poet spoke. Now, let us go into the blind world waiting here below us. I will lead the way, and you shall follow. And I, sick with alarm at his new pallor, cried out, How can I go this way when you, who are my strength, in doubt, turn pale with terror? And he, the bane of these below us here, drains the color from my face for pity, and leaves this pallor you mistake for fear. Now, let us go, for a long road awaits us. So he entered, and he led me into the first circle, in the ledge of the abyss. No tortured wailing rose to greet us here, but sounds of sighing rose from every side, sending a tremor through the timeless air. A grief breathed out of untormented sadness, the passive state of those who dwelled apart, men, women, children, a dim and endless congress. And the master said to me, You do not question what souls these are that suffer here before you. I wish you to know, before you travel on, that these were sinless, and still their merits fail, for they lacked baptism's grace, which is the door of the true faith you were born to. Their birth fell before the age of the Christian mysteries, and so they did not worship God's Trinity in fullest duty. I am one of these. For such defects are we lost, though spared the fire and suffering hell in one affliction only, that, without hope, we live on in desire. I thought how many worthy souls there were suspended in that limbo, and a weight closed on my heart for what the noblest suffer. "Instruct me, master, and most noble sir," I prayed him then, "better to understand the perfect creed that conquers every error. Has any, by his own or another's merit, gone ever from this place to blessedness?" He sensed my inner question and answered it. "I was still new to this estate of tears when a mighty one descended here among us, crowned with the sign of his victorious years. He took from us the shade of our first parent, of Abel, his pure son, of ancient Noah, of Moses, the bringer of law, the obedient, Father Abraham, David the king, Israel with his father and his children, Rachel, the holy vessel of his blessing, and many more he chose for elevation among the elect. And before these, you must know, no human soul had ever won salvation." We had not paused as he spoke, but held our road and passed meanwhile beyond oppressive souls, crowded about like trees in a thick wood. And we had not traveled far from where I awoke when I made out a radiance before us that struck away a hemisphere of dark. We were still some distance back in the long night, yet near enough that I half saw, half sensed what quality of souls lived in that light. Oh, ornament of wisdom and of art! What souls are these, whose merit lights their way even in hell? What joy sets them apart? And he to me, "The signature of honor they left on earth is recognized in heaven, and wins them ease in hell out of God's favor." And as he spoke, a voice rang on the air, "Honor the Prince of Poets. The soul and glory that went from us returns. He is here! He is here!" The cry ceased, and the echo passed from hearing. I saw 4 mighty presences come toward us, with neither joy nor sorrow in their bearing. "Note well," my master said as they came on, "that soul that leads the rest with sword in hand, as if he were their captain and champion. It is Homer, singing master of the earth. Next after him is Horace the satirist. Ovid is third, and Lucan is the fourth. Since all of these have part in the high name the voice proclaimed, calling me Prince of Poets, the honor that they do me honors them." So I saw gathered at the edge of the light the masters of that highest school whose song outsoars all others like an eagle's flight. And after they had talked together a while, they turned and welcomed me most graciously, at which I saw my approving master smile. And they honored me far beyond courtesy, for they included me in their own number, making me 6th in that high company. The self-insert in this fanfic is going hard. So we moved toward the light, and as we passed we spoke things as well omitted here, as it was sweet to touch on there. At last we reached the base of a great citadel, circled by 7 towering battlements, and by a sweet brook flowing round them all. This we passed over as if it were firm ground. Through 7 gates I entered with those sages, and came to a green meadow blooming round. There, with a solemn and majestic poise, stood many people gathered in the light, speaking infrequently and with muted voice. Past that enameled green we 6 withdrew into a luminous and open height, from which each soul among them stood in view. And there, directly before me on the green, the master souls of time were shown to me. I glory in the glory I have seen. Electra stood in great company, among whom I saw Hector and Aeneas, and Caesar in armor with his falcon's eye. I saw Camilla and the Queen Amazon across the field. I saw the Latian king seated there with his daughter by his throne, and the good Brutus, who overthrew the Tarquin, Lucrezia, Julia, Marcia, and Cornelia, and, by himself apart, the Saladin. And raising my eyes a little, I saw on high Aristotle, the master of those who know, ringed by the great souls of philosophy. All wait upon him for their honor and his. I saw Socrates and Plato at his side, before all others there. Democritus, who ascribes the world to chance, Diogenes, and with him there Thales, Anaxagoras, Zeno, Heraclitus, Empedocles. And I saw the wise collector and analyst, Dioscorides. I saw Orpheus there. Tully, Linus, Seneca the moralist, Euclid, the geometer, that's an interesting title, and Ptolemy, Hippocrates, Galen, Avicenna, and Averroes of the great commentary. I cannot count so much nobility. My longer theme pursues me, so that often the word falls short of the reality. The company of 6 is reduced by 4. My master leads me by another road, out of that serenity to the roar and trembling air of hell. I pass from light into the kingdom of eternal night. All right, that brings to the end of the 4th canto. And so we've seen the first bit of real references going on, and this reminds me that I'm kind of surprised that they let us read this in school. I will be honest, this was, being that this was well, I for one went to a public school, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised anymore really, because they'll let this sort of thing specifically into public school. But this is airing awful close to a religious text. To be in the library, sure, but to be in assigned work, it's kind of flirting with a few different problems, but it is what it is. The idea and the presentation here that all who were born before and didn't even have a chance of being of the heaviest of air quotes here, the true faith, were doomed to hell right from the get-go without even a chance, is very Christocentric, and not a surprise, but the fact that at least Dante gives them a lighter sentence here up in the very tippy top of hell where it's least bad. So you can see Dante is trying to sort of describe things to be a little bit better than it might be in the general doctrine. For his own convenience, sure, but yeah. Oh, it was too Catholic. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. There's bits of this where it definitely has the ring of doctrine to it. Um, so I could see that. For us, it was really just accepted that it was part of the writing, and yeah, he's going in with the apologetics full on, and it's a bit of a middle ground, you see, that's going on, and it's mixed feelings, mixed vibes. In general, that aspect of Christianity has always turned me off, and so we'll see whether he'll continue. Well, he'll continue, obviously, um, but that's just part of the game. It's part and parcel. All right, guys, we are coming up on our ad break, so we're gonna have to take a short break. Let's go ahead and take a little bit to stand up, stretch our legs, make sure we're ready and refreshed, top up our drinks, attend to the fuzzy friends, and we'll be back in just a few minutes to continue from the 5th canto. All right, we are back. So, we've gotten through the first 4 cantos, the introduction of Dante and Virgil, and the beginning of their entry and descent into hell, as they're sort of on a grand guided tour. And yeah, as Akamos says, it's blending like 3 parts apologetics, trying to look at the figures of the past who don't deserve hell, so try and pump them up. Mocking contemporary political figures, because obviously, if you're going to be discussing hell, you might as well throw your political opponents in there as well and think, ha 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 ha, watch them burn. It's actually quite satisfying. And also, you know, if you're going to be doing a self-insert, you might as well have some fantastic people from history and angels and people that you admire coming down and saying, man, you really don't belong down here in hell. Let's get you on over by. You're awesome. Yeah. Dante's kind of got a type. He's ahead of the curve. He could be writing Sonic fanfics and fitting in with the gang perfectly. But we'll go beyond that, because he's an artiste. So, let's continue now with the 5th canto, Circle 2, the Carnal. So we went down to the 2nd ledge alone, a smaller circle of so much greater pain. The voice of the damned rose in a bestial moan. There Minos sits, grinning, grotesque and hale. He examines each lost soul as it arrives, and delivers his verdict with his coiling tail. That is to say, you would think the 14-year-olds are doing the majority of the Sonic fanfics. I'm not sure you're too in touch with that, Akamos. You would like to think that, and you would hope sincerely that it is angsty teenagers that are writing this stuff. I'm not entirely sure. I have less faith in humanity than you do, it seems. That is to say, when the ill-fated soul appears before him, it confesses all, and that grim sorter of the dark and foul decides which place in hell shall be its end. Then wraps his twitching tail about himself, one coil for each degree it must descend. The soul descends, and others take its place. Each crowds in its turn to judgment. Each confesses, each hears its doom, and falls away through space. "O you who come to this camp of woe," cried Minos, when he saw me turn away without awaiting his judgment. "Watch where you go, once you have entered here, and to whom you turn. Do not be misled by that wide and easy passage. And my guide to him, that is not your concern. It is his fate to enter every door. This has been willed where what is willed must be, and is not yours to question. Say no more." Now the choir of anguish, like a wound, strikes through the tortured air. Now I have come to hell's full lamentation, sound beyond sound. I came to a place stripped bare of every light, and roaring on the naked dark like seas racked by a war of winds. Their hellish flight of storm and counterstorm through time foregone sweeps the soul of the damned before its charge. Whirling, battering, it drives them on. And when they pass the ruined gap of hell, through which we had come, their shrieks begin anew. There they blasphemed the power of God eternal. And this, I learned, was the never-ending flight. Those who sinned in the flesh, the carnal and lusty who betrayed reason to their appetite. As the wings of wintering starlings bear them on in their great wheeling flights, just so the blast wearies these evil souls through time forgone. Here, there, up, down they whirl, and whirling strain with never hope to comfort them, not of release, but even of less pain. As cranes go over sounding their harsh cry, leaving the long streak of their flight in air, so come these spirits, wailing as they fly. And watching their shadows lashed by wind, I cried, "Master, what souls are these? The very air lashes with its black whips from side to side." "The first of these, whose history you would know," he answered me, "was empress of many tongues. Mad sensuality corrupted her so, that to hide the guilt of her debauchery, she licensed all depravity alike, and lust and law were one in her decree. She is Semiramis, of whom the tale is told, how she married Ninus, and succeeded him to the throne of that wide land the sultans hold. The other is Dido, faithless to the ashes of Sychaeus. She killed herself for love. The next, whom the eternal tempest lashes, is sense-drugged Cleopatra. See Helen there, from whom such ill arose, and great Achilles, who fought at last with love in the house of prayer, and Paris and Tristan." As they whirled above, he pointed out more than 1,000 shades of those torn from the mortal life by love. I stood there while my teacher one by one named the great knights and ladies of dim time. I was swept by pity and confusion. At last I spoke. "Poet, I should be glad to speak a word with those two swept together so lightly on the wind, and still so sad." And he to me, "Watch them when next they pass. Call to them in the name of love that drives and damns them here. In that name they will pause." Thus, as soon as the wind in its wild course brought them around, I called, "O wearied souls! If none forbid it, pause and speak to us." As mating doves that love calls to their nest glide through the air with motionless raised wings, borne by the sweet desire that fills each breast. Yes, previous owner of this book, this was in fact simile. Well done. Well done. There is something about this aftermarket books with the notes and history of previous readers and students that is actually really charming. I'm enjoying this. I'm glad I found this version of this book in particular. Just so those spirits turned on the torn sky, when the band where Dido whirls across the air, such was the power of pity in my cry. "O living creature, gracious, kind, and good, going this pilgrimage through the sick night, visiting us, who stained the earth with blood, were the king of time our friend, he would pray his peace on you who have pitied us. As long as the wind will let us pause, ask of us what you please. The town where I was born lies by the shore where the Po descends into its ocean rest, with its attendant streams in one long murmur. Love, which in gentlest hearts will soonest bloom, seized my lover with passion for that sweet body from which I was torn unshriven to my doom. Love, which permits no loved one not to love, took me so strongly with delight in him that we are one in hell, as we were above. Love led us to one death. In the depths of hell, Cain waits for him who took our lives. This was the piteous tale they stopped to tell. And when I heard those world-offended lovers, I bowed my head. At last the poet spoke. What painful thoughts are these your lowered brow covers? When at last I answered, I began, Alas! What sweetest thoughts, what green and young desire led these two young lovers to this sorry pass? Then, turning to those spirits once again, I said, Francesca, what you suffer here melts me to tears of pity and of pain. But tell me, in the time of your sweet sighs, by what appearances found love the way to lure you to his perilous paradise? And she, the double grief of a lost bliss, is to recall its happy hour in pain. Your guide and teacher knows the truth of this. But if there is indeed a soul in hell to ask of the beginning of our love, out of his pity, I will weep and tell. On a day, for dalliance, we read the rhyme of Lancelot, how love had mastered him. We were alone with innocence and dim time. Pause after pause, that high old story drew, our eyes together while we blushed and paled. But it was one soft passage overthrew our caution and our hearts. For when we read how her fond smile was kissed by such a lover, he who is one with me alive and dead breathed on my lips the tremor of his kiss. That book, and he who wrote it, was a pender. That day we read no further. As she said this, the other spirit who stood by her wept so piteously. I felt my senses reel and faint away with anguish. I was swept by such a swoon as death is, and I fell, as a corpse might fall, to the dead floor of hell. All right, so that brings us to the end of the 5th canto, and where the lovers and lustful reside. And we get a reminder that, well, the historical figures were listed off, but we get a reminder that, you know what, the Arthurian tales might have been problematic for more than just Don Quixote. If people are reading them and becoming, hot under the collar for the romance of Guinevere and Lancelot, and finding themselves damned to hell because of it? Oh, no. Oh, le gasp. Always with the chivalrous tales that bring doom and destruction. All right, let's continue. We're making good progress tonight. We're just shy of a quarter of the way through, at least of the book proper. There's a lot of notes in this, so it's a lot less dense and flows interestingly. But let's see where the 6th canto will take us. Canto 6, Circled 3, The Gluttons. My senses had reeled from me out of pity for the sorrow of those kinsmen and lost lovers. Now they return, and waking gradually, I see new torments and new souls in pain about me everywhere. Wherever I turn away from grief, I turn to grief again. I am in the 3rd circle of the torments. Here, to old time With neither pause nor change, the frozen rain of hell descends in torrents. Huge hailstones, dirty water, and black snow pour from the dismal air to putrefy the putrid slush that waits for them below. Here, monstrous Cerberus, the ravening beast, howls through his triple throats like a mad dog over the spirits sunk in that foul paste. His eyes are red, his beard is greased with phlegm, his belly is swollen, and his hands are claws to rip the wretches and flay and mangle them. And they, too, howl like dogs in the freezing storm, turning and turning from it as if they thought one naked side could keep the other warm. When Cerberus discovered us in that swill, his dragon jaws yawed wide, his lips drew back in a grin of fangs. No limb of him was still. My guide bent down and seized in either fist a clod of the stinking dirt that festered there, and flung them down the gullet of the beast. As a hungry cur will set the echoes raving, and then fall still when he has thrown a bone, all of his clamor being in his craving. So the three ugly heads of Cerberus, whose yowling at those wretches deafened them, choked on their putrid sops and stopped their fuss. We made our way across the sodden mess of souls the rain beat down, and when our steps fell on a body, they sank through emptiness. All those illusions of being seemed to lie drowned in the slush, until one wraith among them sat up abruptly and called as I passed by, "Oh, you who led this journey through the shade of hell's abyss, do you recall this face? You who has been made before I was unmade?" And I, "Perhaps the pain you suffer here distorts your image from my recollection. I do not know you as you now appear." And he to me, "Your own city, so rife with hatred that the bitter cup flows over, was mine too, in that other, clearer life. Your citizens nicknamed me Tiago, the hog. Gluttony was my offense, and for it I lie here, rotting like a swollen log. Nor am I lost in this alone. All these you see about you in this painful death have wallowed in the same indecencies." I answered him, "Siako, your agony weighs on my heart and calls my soul to tears. But tell me, if you can, what is to be for the citizens of that divided state, and whether there are honest men among them, and for what reasons we are torn by hate?" And he then, after many words given and taken, "It shall come to blood. White shall rise over black and rout the Dark Lord's force, battered and shaken. Then it shall come to pass within 3 suns that the fallen shall arise, and by the power of one now gripped by many hesitations, black shall ride on white for many years, loading it down with burdens and oppressions, and humbling the proud names and helpless tears. 2 are honest, but none will heed them. There, pride, avarice, and envy are the tongues men know and heed. A babel of despair. Here he broke off his mournful prophecy, and I to him, "Still, let me urge you on to speak a little further, and instruct me. Parinato and Tagliajo, men of good blood, Jacopo Rostisucci, Arrigo, Mosca, and the others who set their hearts on doing good. Where are they now, whose high deeds must begem the crown of kings? I long to know their fate. Does heaven soothe, or hell envenom them?" And he, "They lie below in a blacker lair, and heavier guilt draws them to greater pain. If you descend so far, you may see them there. But when you move again among the living, oh, speak my name to the memory of men. Having answered all, I say no more." and giving his head a shake, he looked up at my face, cross-eyed, then bowed his head and fell away among the other blind souls of that place. And my guide to me, he will not awaken again until the angel trumpet sounds the day on which the host shall come to judge all men. Then shall each soul before the seat of mercy return to its sad grave and flesh and form, to hear the edict of eternity. So we picked our slow way among the shades, and the filthy rain, speaking of life to come.
Master, I said, when the great clarion fades into the voice of thundering omniscience, what of these agonies? Will they be the same, or more, or less, after the final sentence?
And he to me, look to your science again, where it is written, the more a thing is perfect, the more it feels of pleasure and of pain. As for these souls, though they could never soar to true perfection, still, in the new time, they will be nearer it than they were before. And so we walked the rim of the great ledge, speaking of pain and joy, and of much more that I will not repeat, and reached the edge, where the descent begins. There, suddenly, we came on Plutus, the great enemy. All right, that brings us to the end of the 6th canto. This is a nice reminder that a lot of the conception, modern, classical, etc., of what hell is, what the idea of hell, really stems from these poets that we've seen. The idea of and description of what the torments that await the damned, the fact that torments even await them at all, comes from the imaginations of these classical poets and has been really adopted. Yeah, it's all Dante and Milton. Funny how now we'll have read both of them. But yeah, it's all coming from the imaginations of these authors. And then it's been riffed upon through the ages. The actual source material, nothing. So, yeah, just a fun little trivia bit. Dante for Catholics and Milton for Protestants. All right, let's continue. We've got quite a bit ahead of us, and we're actually making pretty good time. We've got about 40-ish minutes yet tonight. So, Canto 7, Circle 4, the Hoarders and the Wasters. Circle 5, the Wrathful and the Sullen. Oh, they're starting to make better time now, I guess. Deciding that, oh no, they can't just sit and wait. No, there's lots of circles to see.
Papa Satan, Aleppi.
Plutus clucked and stuttered in his rage. And my all-knowing guide to comfort me. Do not be startled, for no power of his, however he may lord it over the damned, may hinder your descent through this abyss. And turning to that carnival of bloat, cried, Peace, you wolf of hell! Choke back your bile and let its venom blister your own throat. Our passage through this pit is willed on high by that same throne that loosed the angel wrath of Michael on ambition and mutiny. As puffed-out sails fall when the mast gives way and flutter to a self-convulsing heap, so collapsed Plutus into that dead clay. Thus we descended the dark scarp of hell, to which All the evil of the universe comes home at last, into the fourth great circle. And ledge of the abyss, oh holy justice, what could relate the agonies I saw? What guilt is man that he can come to this? Just as the surge Charybdis hurls to sea, crashes and breaks upon its counter-surge, so these shades dance and crash eternally. Here, too, I saw a nation of lost souls. Far more than were above, they strained their chests against enormous weights, and with mad howls rolled them at one another. Then in haste they rolled them back, one party shouting out, "Why do you hoard?" and the other, "Why do you waste?" So back around that ring they puff and blow, each faction to its course, until they reach opposite sides, and screaming as they go, the madmen turn and start their weights again, to crash against the maniacs. And I, watching, felt my heart contract with pain.
"Master," I said, "what people could these be? And all those tonsured ones there on our left, is it possible they all were of the clergy?"
And he, in the first life beneath the sun, they were so skewed and squint-eyed in their minds, their misering or extravagance mocked all reason. The voice of each clamors its own excess. When lust meets lust at the 2 points of the circle, where opposite guilts meet in their wretchedness, these tonsured wraiths of greed were priests indeed, and popes and cardinals, for it is in these the weed of avarice sows its rankest seed.
And I to him, "Master, among this crew surely I should be able to make out the fallen image of some soul I knew."
And he to me, "This is a lost ambition. In their sordid lives they labored to be blind, and now their souls have dimmed past recognition. All their eternity is to butt and bray. One crew will stand tight-fisted, the other stripped of its very hair, at the bar of Judgment Day. Hoarding and squandering wasted all their light, and brought them screaming to this brawl of wraiths. You need no words of mine to grasp their plight. Now, may you see the fleeting vanity of the goods of fortune, for which men tear down all that they are, to build a mockery. Not all the gold that is, or ever was, under the sky could buy for one of these. Exhausted souls the fraction of a pause."
"Master," I said, "tell me, now that you touch on this Dame Fortune, what is she, that she holds the good things of the world within her clutch?"
And he to me, "O credulous mankind, is there one error that has wooed and lost you? Now, listen, and strike error from your mind. That king, whose perfect wisdom transcends all, made the heavens, and posted angels on them, to guide the eternal light that it might fall. From every sphere to every sphere the same, he made earth's splendors by a like degree, and posted as their minister this high dame, the Lady of Permutations. All earth's gear she changes from nation to nation, from house to house, in changeless change throughout every turning year. No mortal power may stay her spinning wheel. The nations rise and fall by her decree. None may foresee where she will set her heel. She passes, and things pass. Man's mortal reason cannot encompass her. She rules her sphere as the other gods rule theirs, season by season. Her changes endlessly, and those whose turn has come press on her so. She must be swift by hard necessity. And this is she so railed at and reviled, that even her debtors in the joys of time blaspheme her name. Their oaths are bitter and wild, but she, in her beatitude, does not hear. Among the primal beings of God's joy, she breathes her blessedness and wheels her sphere. But the stars that marked our starting fall away. We must go deeper into greater pain, for it is not permitted that we stay. And, crossing over to the chasm's edge, we came to a spring that boiled and overflowed through a great crevice worn into the ledge. By that foul water, black from its very source, we found a nightmare path among the rocks, and followed the dark stream along its course. Beyond its rocky race and wild descent, the river floods and forms a marsh called Styx, its dreary swampland vaporous and malignant, and I, intent on all our passage touched, made out a swarm of spirits in that bog, savage with anger, naked, slime besmutched. They thumped at one another in that slime with hands and feet, and they butted and they bit as if each would tear the other limb from limb. And my kind sage, my son, behold the souls of those who lived in wrath, and do you see the broken surfaces of those water holes, on each hand boiling, as if in pain? There are souls beneath that water, fixed in slime. They speak their piece, end it, and start again. Sullen were we in the air that made sweet by the sun, in the glory of his shining our hearts poured a bitter smoke. Sullen were we begun, sullen we lie forever in this ditch. This litany they gargle in their throats, as if they sang, but lacked the words and pitch. Then, circling on that filthy wallow, we picked our way between the bank and fen, keeping our eyes on those foul souls that swallow the slime of hell. And so, at last we came to the foot of a great tower that has no name. All right, that brings us to the end of the 7th canto, and where we saw the description of the previous 2 circles of hell. Just a couple references at the beginning of that one. Really just sort of Virgil pushing Dante along and saying, no, you can't recognize these guys. Let's keep on going. Oh, by the way, that's the goddess Fortune. Don't mind her. Oh, hey, thank you very much for the follow, Tennyson. I'm glad you've decided to join us, and I hope you continue to enjoy as we read through Dante's Inferno. We've got a little bit yet tonight. We've got about 20-25 minutes or so. So let's continue and try and get through the 8th canto tonight. And we'll probably get through 8 and 9 at this pace. So, Canto 8. Circle 5, Styx, the wrathful Phlegius. Circle 6, Dis, the fallen angels. Returning to my theme, I say we came to the foot of a great tower, but long before we reached it through the marsh, 2 horns of flame flared from the summit, one from either side. And then, far off, so far we scarce could see it across the mist, another flame replied. I turned to that sea of all intelligence, saying,
"What is this signal and countersignal? Who is it that speaks with fire across this distance?"
And he then, "Look across the filthy slough. You may already see the one they summon, if the swamp vapors do not hide him from you." No twanging bowstring ever shot an arrow that bored the air it rode dead to the mark more swiftly than the flying skiff whose prow shot toward us over the polluted channel with a single steersman at the helm, who called, "So, do I have you at last, you whelp of hell?" Flagius, said my lord and guide, "this time you waste your breath, and that's only for the time it takes to cross to the other side." Flagius, the madman, blew his rage among those muddied marshes like a cheat deceived, or like a fool at some imagined wrong. My guide, whom all the fiend's noise could not nettle, boarded the skiff, motioned me to follow, and not till I stepped aboard did it seem to settle into the water. At once we left the shore, that ancient hull riding more heavily than it had ridden in all of time before. As we ran on that dead swamp, the slime rose before me, and from it a voice cried,
"Who are you that come here before your time?"
And I replied,
"If I come, I do not remain. But you, who are you, so fallen and so foul?"
And he,
"I am one who weeps."
And I then,
"May you weep and wail for all eternity, to all eternity, for I know you, hell-dog, filthy as you are."
Then he stretched both hands to the boat, but warily the master shoved him back, crying, "Down, down with the other dogs." Then he embraced me, saying,
"Indignant spirit, I kiss you as you frown. Blessed be she who bore you in name and time. This one was haughtier yet. Not one unbending graces his memory. Here is his shadow in slime. How many living now, chancellors of wrath, shall come to lie here in this pigmire, leaving a curse to be their aftermath?"
And I, "Master, it would suit my whim to see the wretch scrubbed down into the swill before we leave this stinking sink and him." And he to me, "Before the other side shows through the mist, you shall have all you ask. This is a wish that should be gratified." And shortly after I saw the loathsome spirit, so mangled by a swarm of muddy wraiths that to this day I praise and thank God for it.
"After Filippo Argenti!"
all cried together. The mad dog Florentine wheeled at their cry, and bit himself for rage. I saw them gather, and there we left him, and I say no more. But such wailing beat upon my ears, I strained my eyes ahead to the far shore. "My son," the master said, "the city called Dis lies just ahead. The heavy citizens, the swarming crowds of Hell's metropolis." And I then,
"Master, I already see the glow of its red mosques, as if they came hot from the forge to smolder in this valley."
And my all-knowing guide, "They are eternal flues, to eternal fire that rages in them, and makes them glow across this lower hell." As he spoke, we entered the vast moat of the sepulchre. Its walls seemed made of iron, and towered above us in our little boat. We circled through what seemed an endless distance, before the boatman ran his prow ashore, crying, "Out! Out! Get out! This is the entrance!" Above the gates, more than 1,000 shades of spirits, purged from heaven for its glory, cried angrily, "Who is it that invades Death's kingdom in his life?" My lord and guide advanced a step before me with a sign, that he wished to speak to some of them aside. They quieted somewhat, and one called,
"Come, but come alone, and tell that other one, who thought to walk so blithely through Death's kingdom, he may go back along the same fool's way he came by. Let him try his living luck. You who are dead can come only to stay."
Reader, judge for yourself how each black word fell on my ears to sink into my heart. I lost hope of returning to the world.
"Oh, my beloved master, my guide in peril, who time and again have seen me safely along this way and turned the power of evil, stand by me now," I cried, "in my heart's fright. And if the dead forbid our journey to them, let us go back together toward the light."
My guide then, in the greatness of his spirit, "Take heart, nothing can take our passage from us, when such a power has given warrant for it. Wait here, and feed your soul while I am gone, on comfort and good hope. I will not leave you to wander in this underworld alone." So the sweet guide and father leaves me here, and I stay on in doubt, with yes and no, dividing all my heart to hope and fear. I could not hear my lord's words, but the pack that gathered round him suddenly broke away, howling and jostling, and went pouring back, slamming the towering gate hard in his face. That great soul stood alone outside the wall. Then he came back. His pain showed in his pace. His eyes were fixed upon the ground. His brow had sagged from its assurance. He sighed aloud. "Who has forbidden me the souls of sorrow?" And to me he said, "You need not be cast down by my vexation. For whatever plot these fiends may lay against us, we will go on." Hang on. Getting some hiccups on connection. Okay, I think we're back. Just a brief blip there. This insolence of theirs is nothing new. They showed it once at a less secret gate that still stands open for all they could do. The same gate where you read the dead inscription, and through it, at this moment, a great one comes. Already, he has passed it and moves down, ledge by dark ledge. He is one who needs no guide, and at his touch, all gates must spring aside. All right, that brings us to the end of the 8th canto. And we saw as was mentioned there, first the swamp that was there, but also the city of Dis, where the fallen angels themselves reside, and are rather cantankerous, shall we say. Not so welcoming of the living. They've got their own kingdom that they lord over. Alright, so continuing with the 9th canto, Circle 6, The Heretics. My face had paled to a mask of cowardice when I saw my guide turn back. The sight of it, the sooner brought the color back to his. He stood apart, like one who strains to hear what he cannot see, for the eye could not reach far across the vapors of that midnight air. Yet surely we were meant to pass these tombs, he said aloud. If not, so much was promised. Oh, how time hangs and drags till our aid comes. I saw too well how the words which he had with which he ended covered his start. And even, perhaps, I drew a worse conclusion from that than he intended. Oh, our previous reader here was very conspicuous in what he was taking notes of here.
Tell me, master, does anyone ever come from the first ledge, whose only punishment is its hope cut off, into this dreary bottom?
I put this question to him, still in fear of what his broken speech might mean, and he, "Rarely do any of us enter here. Once before, it is true, I crossed through hell, conjured by a cruel Erectho, who recalled the spirits to their bodies. Her dark spell forced me, newly stripped of my mortal part, to enter through this gate and summon out a spirit from Judaica. Take heart, that is the last depth, and the darkest lair, and the farthest from heaven which encircles all. And at that time, I came back even from there. The marsh from which the stinking gases bubble lies all about this capital of sorrow, whose gates we may not pass now without trouble." All this and more he expounded, but the rest was lost on me, for suddenly my attention was drawn to the turret with the fiery crest, where all at once 3 hellish and inhuman furies sprang to view, blood-stained and wild. Their limbs and gestures hinted they were women. Belts of greenest hydras wound and wound about their waists, and snakes and horned serpents grew from their heads like matted hair and bound their horrid brows. My master, who well knew the handmaids of the Queen of Woe, cried, "Look, the terrible Erinyes of Hecate's crew. That is Megara. To the left of the tower, Alecto is the one who raves on the right. Tisiphone stands between." And he said no more. With their palms they beat their brows, with their nails they clawed their bleeding breasts, and such mad wails broke from them that I drew close to the poet, overawed. And all together screamed, looking down at me, "Call Medusa, that we may change him to stone! Too lightly we let Theseus go free." "Turn your back and keep your eyes shut tight, for should the Gorgon come and you look at her, never again would you return to the light." This was my guide's command, and he turned me about himself, and would not trust my hands alone, but, with his placed on mine, held my eyes shut. Men of sound intellect and probity weigh with good understanding what lies hidden behind the veil of my strange allegory. Suddenly, there broke on the dirty swell of the dark marsh a squall of terrible sound that sent a tremor through both shores of hell. A sound as if 2 continents of air, one frigid and one scorching, clashed head-on in a war of winds that stripped the forests bare, ripped off whole boughs and blew them helter-skelter. Along the range of dust it raised before it, making the beasts and shepherds run for shelter. The master freed my eyes. "Now turn," he said, "and fix your nerve of vision on the foam, there, where the smoke is thickest and most acrid." As frogs before the snake that hunts them down churn up their pond in flight, until the last squats on the bottom, as if turned to stone, so I saw more than 1,000 ruined souls scatter away from one who crossed dry-shod the Stygian marsh into hell's burning bowels. With his left hand he fanned away the dreary vapors of that sink as he approached, and only of that annoyance did he seem wary. Clearly, he was a messenger from God's throne, and I turned to my guide, but he made me a sign that I should keep my silence and bow down. Ah, what scorn breathed from that angel presence! He reached the gate of Dis, and with a wand he waved it open. There was no resistance. "Outcasts of heaven, you twice loathsome crew!" he cried upon that terrible sill of hell. "How does this insolence still live in you? Why do you set yourselves against that throne whose will none can deny, and which, times past, has added to your pain for each rebellion? Why do you butt against fate's ordinance? Your Cerberus, if you recall, still wears his throat and chin peeled for such arrogance." When he turned back through the same filthy tide by which he had come, he did not speak to us, but went his way like one preoccupied by other presences than those before him. And we moved toward the city, fearing nothing after his holy words. Straight through the dim and open gate we entered unopposed, and I, eager to learn what new estate of hell those burning fortress walls enclosed, began to look about the very moment we were inside, and I saw on every hand a countryside of sorrow and new torment. As at Arles, where the Rhone sinks into stagnant marshes, as at Pola, by the Quarnaro Gulf, whose waters close Italy and wash her farthest reaches, the uneven tombs cover the even plain. Such fields I saw here, spread in all directions, except that here the tombs were chests of pain. For, in a ring around each tomb, great fires raised every wall to a red heat. No smith works hotter iron in his forge. The biers stood with their lids upraised, and from their pits an anguished moaning rose on the dead air from the desolation of tormented spirits. And I,
"Master, what shades are these who lie buried in these chests and fill the air with such a painful and unending cry?"
"These are the arch heretics of all cults, with all their followers," he replied. "Far more than you would think lie stuffed into these vaults. Like lies with like in every heresy. Like lies with like in every heresy, and the monuments are fired, some more, some less, to each depravity its own degree." We turned then, and I followed through that night, between the wall and the torments, bearing right. All right, let's see. How long is this next canto? We're still into the heretics, and this is where, I think, if I remember right, Dante stops aside to talk to some of the heretics. Let's see how long this one is. We don't have that much time tonight. I think I kind of want to save this one for next time, just to be sure, because I think this is where things get interesting, and there's a lot of political and such referencing back and forth as we're getting into this. So I think we're probably going to call it a little bit early tonight. Well, like 5 minutes. It's not really that early. But let's go ahead and we'll let the ads run for now. We'll come back. We'll decompress a little bit and talk about what we've read so far. Vibe checks in general, just get a feel for how the Inferno has been going. And then we'll plan for getting further along next time. So, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Go ahead and stand up, stretch your legs, top up your drinks. We'll be back to run through our conclusion in just a few minutes. All right, we are back. So, Yusuke Howl, thanks for following. I hope you've enjoyed the stream so far. Welcome to our little community here. We hopefully are fostering a love of literature from all over Twitch, and maybe just some conversation. Speaking of conversation, we're finishing up with tonight's reading, so let's go ahead and set a bookmark here. We've made it through the first 9 cantos of Dante's Inferno, the first of the 3 parts of the Divine Comedy. So let's go ahead and get out of our reading nook here. A little bit of space freed up. So, this one has been a lot of fun. It's certainly a book that I am still surprised that it took us this long to get to. Although Akimos and I were talking about it earlier when we were getting started, that it feels like this is one of those books that, just by virtue of us trying to be more creative in our choices of what we were going to read, was just a victim of being too obvious a choice, I think. And also, we've read things that are slightly similar. We read Paradise Lost, which is in a similar pseudo-religious vein that it sort of didn't quite feel right. So we needed to give it some time and space. We don't want to typecast ourselves into paint ourselves into a corner with anything of the sort. But it feels like it's time. And it is still a satisfying read for all the delays. I will say, I read this one first years ago. Too many years. Shit. Has it been? It's been a long time. It's been a very long time. But I was in high school at the time, and as such, as many of you may agree, assigned readings hit very differently to those you choose and read for yourself. Particularly, I was not a fantastically diligent student, and probably passed over a lot of my readings. If you fake it through discussion in class, you can generally get away with a lot. But that is not really here nor there. It does give a bit of a... it gives a different perspective, though. Coming back and reading it now is... reading it now for just the sake of reading it, rather than dissecting it and analyzing and pulling out all the symbology and everything, is just so much more of a fun read. The particular copy that we have, that we found, is all sorts of laced with irony, because this is almost certainly a student's copy, as they were taking notes and highlighting things for discussion and going through, and either a student or a teacher's copy. And the irony of a diligent student previously being the owner of this copy, and then flipping it on its head and it being me, who was not a diligent student and am now reading it as a VTuber on the internet. The irony is not lost on me, shall we say. But, it's still fun. But, yeah, so I'm glad you agree. Being assigned readings don't really fit. Doing Big Hearts Change. I'm not familiar with what Big Hearts Change is. Let me look that up. Oh, okay. Project for a movie. Well, cool. I hope you're making good progress and having some ideas come to you and progress for your project going along. We can always wish each other the best as we're going through in our own pet projects or professional, as the case may be. So yeah, that's cool. Writer's block is always a challenge. Sometimes it just takes an inspiration from the most unlikely sources sometimes to break through it. And being as such, you can't really go looking for it. You just sort of have to go about life and immerse yourself in whatever sort of passions of the time or conversations or interactions as you can find, and maybe something will break through the wall and you'll find the inspiration you need to get through your scene that you're stuck on. So good luck, best of luck. I do hope that you're able to make as much progress as you wish. Yeah, dialogue-heavy bits are a challenge. Whether you're writing for prose, poetry, screen, all of the above, whenever you get that interaction, it's not easy. Alright, guys, so we have filled our time. We stopped just a touch early on the reading tonight, but with the padding of ads and the random discussions before and after, we have filled our 2 hours. And as such, I don't know about you, but it's getting a little late on a Sunday evening for me. Old man can only keep going for so long. So, let's go ahead and wrap up here for tonight. We will be returning to Dante's Inferno on Tuesday for our next scheduled reading, also at 8 o'clock. And we'll see where it will take us from here on out. I know the general flow of the narrative, but as I'm looking at the page, we're about a third of the way through, a little less than that. So there's a lot of book left, although I don't want to take that for granted. When we were reading Gilgamesh, we got about 2/3 of the way through the book, and then all of a sudden, it was over. And there was only notes and postscript for the last, 30, 40 pages. I haven't looked ahead to see if this does the same. We'll see. So, for those of you who are new here, thank you very much for joining us. I will do a quick recap. We always dual stream on both YouTube and Twitch. The VODs are always going to be available on YouTube. The Twitch VODs are a little less reliable. So if you're on the YouTube side, a subscription to the channel and a like on the stream would both go a long way toward convincing the algorithm to send new friends our way and developing our little community the best it can. If you're on Twitch, thank you very much for joining us. We are just relatively getting new on the Twitch side. We started in February or so, and we are very quickly approaching to parity between our Twitch and YouTube numbers. So, thank you for joining our little struggling, well, not really struggling, we don't struggle much. Thank you for joining our growing community. If you care to follow along with us, we really just ask for follows. That's really all it takes to catch on to when our next streams will be. We stick to a reasonably strict schedule, so our next stream will be on Tuesday, followed by Friday for the next classics read. On Saturdays, we read more modern works that are unarchived, so they will not be in the VODs, but they are longer reads, and generally just something that is for fun. Right now, we're reading The Shining by Stephen King, a little bit of horror that is not really my forte, which is really half the fun. If you can watch me squirm, it's just another riff on bullying the streamer, right? All right, let's go ahead and wrap up here for tonight. As always, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you have a lovely evening, and let's see if there is anyone reading tonight. I always like to raid to fellow readers whenever we can. just to help share our communities around and participate in this whole Twitch dynamic. I'm still getting the hang of things. So let's see if there's anyone that's reading tonight that we can bounce over to and see if they are having a good time as well. Let's see. Jeff is reading tonight. Oh, someone is reading Mountains of Madness. Lovecraft is always fun, and they're just getting started, so we may try them. I try to read over to new people whenever we can. Someone is reading Wuthering Heights, but I think that's a rerun. Yeah, I try to read into new people whenever we can, just to sort of grow our reach. So, let's see. Let's go ahead and try and head over to, so where was I? I lost track of him. Super Duper Jeff, who is reading At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. We've read that in the past, and it was fantastic. One of the longer form Lovecraft stories. So, be sure to give Jeff our very best as we raid over now to take part in one of the better Lovecraft stories. Assuming he lets us raid. We'll try. Alright. As always, thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a lovely evening. And until next time, good night.